We are spending too much on our asylum seekers and not enough on our own people. That figure is now £2.1 billion, but these eye-watering figures are all a bit of a fudge, because we're spending hundreds of millions from our foreign aid budget to accommodate these people as well. If poor people in this country or homeless military veterans would get better treatment if they travelled to Calais, got in a dinghy.
A British Army veteran, wounded in Afghanistan and left homeless, struggles to make sense of why immigrants get priority for housing while he's left with nothing. How did it come to this, and who's responsible? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Why is it that the UK can spend millions of pounds housing illegal immigrants in hotels, yet thousands of veterans who once served this country with loyalty sleep on the streets? The decisions behind these priorities have stirred frustration and anger, especially as the numbers become harder to ignore.
Now, if you're a private landlord, generally, you pay for the upkeep and repairs, you pay for all of that stuff, you pay the management fee. This is the deal. We will pay your rent on time every month, no arrears. We will pay full repair and maintenance.
And again, I don't really blame those unscrupulous landlords, because if you've got a government that's this stupid that is going to put this deal to them, I'd probably take it as well.
Government-funded housing for immigrants, often in expensive hotels or council properties, is costing taxpayers nearly £8 million per day. Yes, per day. Across the UK, over 400 hotels are currently being used to house migrants. Some of these in high-demand areas where local citizens can no longer secure affordable housing.
Shall we? Because there are 38,000 asylum seekers in hotels. That is costing you and me £5.5 million a day, whatever he's doing. Anyway, the Home Office is launching a drive for landlords to house asylum seekers following this surge. Serco is offering landlords 5-year guaranteed full rent deals to house asylum seekers. Now,
the controversy deepens when we look at how landlords are being incentivized to cater exclusively to immigrants. 5-year government-backed contracts offer a steady income for property owners who agree to bypass other tenants in favor of housing migrants. To these landlords, it's a practical choice: guaranteed payments, fewer risks. But for local residents, many of whom are struggling financially themselves, this practice has devastated entire communities. They're seeing public resources redirected at a staggering scale, while some of their own needs seem to get overlooked entirely.
hotels full of migrants.
Of course, it's a local issue, because it's also an issue of women's safety, it's an issue of crime, it's an issue of social cohesion. Born citizens who are sleeping rough, and then you hear 30,000 people who have come to this country illegally, who are in either plush hotels or to work this out, in that if you have incentives to come into this country, more people will come, and more people will risk their lives at sea.
Now consider the visible homelessness epidemic, which includes a heartbreaking number of British Army veterans. These individuals risked their lives for their country, yet find themselves cast aside. One such veteran recounts his own story. Medically discharged after being shot in Afghanistan, left to navigate a life with permanent injuries and no consistent support system. Despite the promises outlined in the Armed Forces Covenant, a commitment to prioritizing military personnel for housing and welfare services, he was refused council housing. Adding insult to injury, at the same time his application was denied, accommodations were being arranged for 300 Afghan migrants in the same area. This veteran expressed his feelings bluntly, calling it a degrading betrayal by the very institutions he served. And this isn't unique. It's part of a larger failure, one that doesn't just neglect veterans but undermines the trust communities have in their government. How can a country that demands so much from its soldiers leave them stranded when they need help the most? This systemic issue isn't going away, but is anyone in power willing to take responsibility? What happens when protecting the narrative takes precedence over protecting the public? This question became unavoidable in Portsmouth, where an alarming criminal case revealed the unsettling priorities of local authorities. A migrant housed in a taxpayer-funded hotel was charged with rape, a case that would usually ignite public outrage and calls for justice. But instead of transparency, Portsmouth City Council chose silence. Councillors were explicitly instructed not to discuss the incident, with officials warning that public comments could inflame community tensions. It was an intentional, strategic cover-up, prioritizing optics over accountability. This decision by the council has had far-reaching consequences, particularly when it comes to public trust. Residents are left questioning why their leaders are more concerned with controlling narratives than ensuring safety. The secrecy stokes resentment, with many citizens perceiving that migrants are shielded from scrutiny in ways locals would never be. Critics argue that this favoritism is a betrayal, widening divides rather than fostering the community harmony authorities claim to protect. Shockingly, this is not an isolated example. Baroness Casey's damning review of similar patterns, particularly surrounding grooming gangs in the UK, revealed the same troubling tendency: denial and deflection in the face of serious accusations. Her findings pointed to repeated failures where councils and police forces avoided confronting crimes for fear of being accused of discrimination. This reluctance, Casey wrote, has allowed predators and criminals to act with impunity. The same warning now looms over policies around immigration-related cases.
Nigel Farage did a press conference the other day where he said we're going to, if reform gets into government, we will have a minister of deportations.
We know the well-trodden or the well-discussed conversations between him and Rupert Lowe, who was much harder on deportations. Speech from Farage as he called out this multiculturalism charade, which for too long people have just gone along with.
Silos.
Yeah.
Figures like Robert Genrich and Nigel Farage have been outspoken about the broader risks of this behaviour. They've pointed to an increasing list of incidents tied to illegal immigration, including acts of terrorism and violent crimes. Farage remarked that the government is taking unacceptable risks with national security, while Genrich accused authorities of enabling a system that prioritizes hiding the truth over addressing the consequences. Their critiques resonate with communities already uneasy about immigration policies, fueling calls for reforms that prioritize transparency. If migrant-related crimes and government opacity continue unchecked, trust in public institutions isn't the only casualty. Citizens are left asking a difficult question: how many risks must society bear to maintain this fragile facade? A country that neglects its veterans while remaining silent on the failures of its immigration policies risks losing its moral compass entirely. The issue is not just about budgeting or bureaucracy, it's about values. Veterans like the soldier left homeless after serving his country are casualties of a system that seems to prioritize optics over fairness. It's not just a question of what's gone wrong, but who we are as a nation. Demand accountability. Call on local representatives to ensure transparency in immigration policies and honor commitments to those who've sacrificed the most. The future depends on making the right choice.